There's no harm in hoping for the best as long as you're prepared for the worst. Good day, everyone. I hope you're having a great day today. Are you having a great day today?
Yes,
Yes,
we're having a good day.
yes, we're having a great day.
Nice to hear your responses. Well, gentlemen, I would like to commend your presence for today's seminar, and it is such a honor and a pleasure for me and for both of us to be in front of you today. So, you to our newly appointed board of directors of Innovtech Company Incorporated, Mr. Elvin Caldino, Mr. Kevin Jade Pamiron, Mr. Kirby Brian Ginandoy, Mr. Ralph Ferrer, and Mr. Shane Caparino. I sincerely welcome you all in our seminar for today. I know that you're a bit intrigued with the quotation I've stated a while ago, but it is merely about preparedness. And that is our goal for our seminar, to keep you ready and prepared towards your path of becoming a successful board of director. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that you have already talked about one of the four pillars of our discussion, and it is all about conducting a meeting. But today we will going to talk about writing a memorandum. So these are just two of the four pillars where one topic every week, and these four pillars of discussions are necessary for your company growth and also for your responsibility individually as a member of the board. So before we proceed to our discussion, I would like to introduce myself first. So I am John Elizer Dalion. I am a graduate from the University of the Philippines Diliman campus, and I am a professional instructor there and specializes as associates in business administration. So that's why I can also provide trainings and seminars whenever available. Okay, so before we formally start, may I request everyone to please listen carefully and take down notes of our presentation, since this will be very essential for your future careers. Also, I would like to ask, would you prefer to ask questions during the presentation, or shall we leave questions to the end?
Just
I
leave
think we should
questions.
questions at the end.
Okay, if that's so, I think I should make a start. Okay, so again, gentlemen, our topic for today is all about memorandum. So here are the list of the 10 points of our discussion. So here is the table of contents, where first 5 points will be discussed by me, and the other five will be discussed by my partner. So the first point I want to discuss is about memorandum itself. Before we proceed to how to make a memorandum, how to make a memorandum comprehensively, and so on and so forth, of course, we need to know first the fundamentals of this, which is we need to start to know what a memorandum itself first. So as mentioned here in our PowerPoint presentation, gentlemen, it is a type of document used to communicate with others in the same organization. So memorandums, or shortly known as memos, are typically used for fairly short messages of one page or less. But of course, I wanted to provide you a more specific and concrete examples for you to further know and assess what a memorandum is. So a memorandum is as simple as a written message in business office. So it is also considered to be a note or a record for future use. So a written document used to communicate an announcement or notification. That is a memorandum. While memos were once the primary form of written internal communications in business, they are now commonly sent into the form of an email, especially today in our recent setup. Because of the pandemic, we cannot lend our physical self into the office, going to the office. So instead, we send memorandums in forms through emails. Yes. So next would be, okay, so the second point I want to discuss will be all about importance of a memorandum in workplace. So why is it important for us to know the importance of a memorandum in workplace? So as mentioned here in our PowerPoint presentation, it is used to communicate for something urgent. So when we say urgent, it is something that is abruptly needed. So a memo can also be sent to people or firms that have close or long-standing relationships, like business letters. A memo is a permanent record of your communication. So of course, gentlemen, as we are working in a formal setting, in a formal setup of this company, we should also have to consider that it is very vital and important for us to create a memorandum and giving a specific information to that particular person or to a group of people. We are not in a public setting. We are not in a public where we can just tap someone and tell them or her that, hey, we're going to have a meeting later. That, hey, there is a price increase of our products. Hey, these are the changes of the policies in the company. So that is something that we need to consider. And that is the importance of a memorandum, especially that we are working in a formal setting. Then the third point would be, okay, aside from knowing what a memorandum is, knowing the importance of a memorandum, of course, it is important for us to know the etiquette in writing a comprehensive memorandum. So now a question arises, what is the relevance of knowing the etiquette in writing a comprehensive memorandum? So that is the third point I want to discuss. So as written here, the relevance in knowing the etiquette in writing a comprehensive memorandum is indeed significant. So by there, we already know in ourselves that a memorandum is something that is very important. And I believe that our topic for today is also being tapped with your previous discussion about conducting a meeting. Because of course, in inviting someone to be in that particular meeting, you need to send a memorandum to make it more formal, right? So the relevance of knowing the etiquette in writing a comprehensive memorandum is again indeed significant. So there are actually, personally, there are actually two types or forms of memorandum. So we call it a good memorandum, and the other one is a bad memorandum. So when we say good memorandum, so that is something that should be brief and to the point, something that is concise. So to clearly state your purpose without going into exhaustive detail and a description. So that is very vital in writing and in making a memorandum to make it on point so the reader of your memorandum won't get lost upon reading your whole set of letter. While a bad memorandum, on the other hand, is of course the opposite of a good memorandum. So when we say a bad memorandum, it is something that is long, that is lengthy. And when your memorandum is lengthy, you will leave your reader in exhaustiveness. So he or she might probably ask or wonder, what is the main point of this memorandum? Why is it that there is a call of a meeting, then right after there is a call of an urgent discussion, the changes of plans with your company growth and so on and so forth. So by knowing both the good and bad memorandum, you already know the relevance of it. That the etiquette in writing a comprehensive memorandum should be significant to your goals and to your plans with the content and the context of your memorandum. So for the fourth point I want to discuss would be the advantages and disadvantages of a memorandum. So of course, everything has its own advantages and disadvantages, and it is also visible here in our PowerPoint presentation that memorandum is not an exception. So as you can clearly see here, a memorandum has more advantages than disadvantages. So that clearly shows how memorandum really is necessary into our private jobs. So let's start with the advantages. So first here, it mentioned avoid distortion of information. So when we say avoid distortion of information, it says that a memo helps to avoid distortion in messages that occur in internal oral communication. So you might wonder, what do you mean by distortion? So distortion is actually an action of giving misleading account. So when you give misleading account, of course, you lost everything. You lost the context and the point of your memo. And that is something that you need to avoid. But also it is the advantage of your memo. Second is avoid misleading. What do you mean by avoid misleading? So a memo provides all concerned with the same information. So therefore, there is little chance of any misunderstanding between the recipient of a message. Third would be preserve information. So preserving information. So since memo is a written document, it can be preserved. Such preservation develops an information based on the organization and anyone can access it whenever he or she needs. Fourth would be maintains consistency. So this is something that is very important. So a memorandum maintains consistency. So Memo can also manage to maintain consistency in their actions and decisions for recurring problems. So by examining the previous records, they solve similar problems in a similar way. Okay, so fourth would be concise. Concise presentation of information. So this is one of the advantage of a memorandum. So when we say concise presentation of information, memo is generally written concisely. As I have mentioned a while ago, a memo is concise, short, and direct to the point. So whatever the subject of memo is, it is written directly and concisely. So there is no need for you to search furthermore about what is the context and the information that is inside of that particular letter. Lastly, it can be used as future reference. So since memo is a written document, as I always say, it can be preserved and used as reference in the future. So those are the advantages of a memorandum. So next, let's proceed to its disadvantages. So you might think that a memorandum really is necessary and important, but of course, it has its own disadvantages, just like other things, of course. So first on the list is lace of explanation. So a memo is generally written concisely. So therefore, it does not provide any explanation or clarification of message to its readers. So when you receive a memorandum, you cannot ask questions. You cannot further explain to yourself what this particular thing is all about. I might give you a memorandum saying that let's have a meeting, but I want to explain there what is inside of our meeting. So that is just one of the disadvantages of a memorandum. Second, problem in modification. So if memo circulates any wrong information inadvertently, it cannot be revised instantly. So for necessary rectification, it requires circulation of corrigendum. So the word corrigendum might be new to your ears, but corrigendum means error to be corrected. So once that you submitted or circulates a memo towards a particular group of person, then you placed a wrong information into it, it is inadvertently wrong. So of course, you should have to abruptly make another memorandum to replace the wrong one. And that is just one of the disadvantages of a memorandum. Because unlike just providing a text message, you can just unsend it, right? You can just unsend your message. But once that particular person already received the memo and already read that, they cannot unsend it. And they cannot even ask further questions about it since it lays of explanation, right? So lastly, for the disadvantages of memorandum, it's time consuming. So of course, if you really wanted to make your memorandum concise, perfect, and appropriate, a formal memo requires time for drafting. So you really have to make drafting. for you to avoid problem in modification. So circulating it to the various parties is very significant. So again, no, the disadvantages of the memorandum somehow are connected. You are laced of explanation, then you will have a problem in modification. It is time consuming, so you need to make sure that your memorandum is correct to avoid problem in modification. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of a memorandum. So for my final point of discussion, I want to discuss about what are the do's and don'ts on in writing a memorandum. So here is the do's and don'ts in writing a memorandum. So first on the list of do's is to check for stylistic requirements with your job. Second, make sure that the body of the text is clear, concise, and grammatically correct. So of course, you should always have to pay attention with your proposed memorandum. You should always have to see if there is a grammatical error, or if your memorandum is something that is very misleading, then you need to correct it. And again, always remember that a memorandum is concise and it should be clear to your reader. So that is something that you need to consider. So always do that in writing a memorandum. Third, keep things simple. So what does this mean? Keep things simple. So this probably means for you to use words that are easy to understand. There is no need for you to use words, scientific words, where it is so hard to understand for your readers. You only have to use the simple ones. Always make your terms simple. Always make everything simple in writing a memorandum, so it can be easily assessed and accessed by everyone. Fourth would be, do not use a salutation. So a gesture of adherence made as a greeting or acknowledgement of another's arrival, because it is inappropriate in writing a memorandum. It is very inappropriate to put gesture on it. So always avoid that in writing a memorandum. Lastly, use bulleted lists and headings to convey your message. So the purpose of this, using bullet forms in your memorandum, is for the reader to direct her focus, direct her eyes into the informations that are necessary and only intended in your memo. So we already knew about the do's. So now let's proceed to the don'ts. So first, in the don'ts, don't give too many whys. Why is it? Don't give too many whys. So again, your memorandum should be concise, should be clear. So you don't have to sugarcoat everything. You don't have to put flowery words on it, because you are not making a feature writing. You're not joining feature writing contest. You are making a memorandum. And one thing that in writing a memorandum should consider is to make it short and concise. So don't you ever add flowery words on it, and do not sugarcoat everything if necessary. Second, don't be trite and dull. So when we say trite and dull, it's like lacking originality or powerful remarks on your output. So do not lose the originality. So always make your memorandum something significant to the context that you wanted your readers to adhere. That's it. Third, don't show off. Don't show off. And lastly, don't berate or use sharp words. So of course, the purpose of a memorandum is to inform and give informations, to tell someone, a particular person or a group of person, that something is happening, that I have this information that I wanted to give to you. So you don't want that particular person or group of person to feel annoyed, right? You don't want him or her to feel embarrassed. You don't want him or her to feel offended with the words that you are using. So of course, you should always have to be mindful and do not berate of your words. So that ends up my discussion. So my part of discussion about memos. So to review my discussion, my main points includes informations of what a memorandum is, its importance, its relevance, its advantages and disadvantages, and lastly, its do's and don'ts. So these informations are very vital for an individual to educate and uplift him or herself to further learn more about the essential of writing a memorandum. So with this being said, I hope that everyone paid attention to my presentation and I hope I make it clear for you to assess. And as agreed, we will be open for your questions in the end of the discussion. So, gentlemen, we are now halfway there to learn more about how to write a memorandum and what a memorandum itself. So now I would like you to also pay attention to my partner, Mr. Sergio Erpilo. So Mr. Erpilo, the floor is yours. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Dalian, for giving us a wonderful explanation on what exactly a memorandum is. Now I am going to take over and continue to discuss further on the details of a memorandum, starting from the parts of a memorandum, which are the following. The heading segment follows this general format, the DTFS format, wherein the date will be the complete and current date. The recipient or to will be the reader's names and job titles. From will be your name or the sender's name and job title, and the subject will be what the memo is all about. Make sure you address the reader by his or her name correctly. Be specific and concise in your subject line. For example, clothes. As a subject line could mean anything from a dress code update to a production issue. Next will be the opening segment. The purpose of a memo is usually found in the opening paragraph and includes the purpose of the memo, the context and problem, and the specific assignment or task. Before indulging the reader with details and the context, give the reader a brief overview of what the memo will be about. Choosing how specific your introduction will depend on your memo plan style. The more direct the memo plan, the more explicit the introduction should be. Including the purpose of the memo will help clarify the reason that the audience should read in this document. The introduction should be brief, approximately the length of a short paragraph. The context is the event, circumstance, or background of the problem you are solving. You may use a paragraph or a few sentences to establish the background and state the problem. Include only what your reader needs, but be sure it is clear. Next is the summary. This segment will help your readers understand the key points of the memo immediately. This segment may also include references to methods and sources you have used in your research. If your memo is longer than a page, you may want to include a separate summary segment. However, this section is not necessary for short memos and should not take up a significant amount of space. This segment provides a brief statement of key recommendations you have reached. The discussion segments are the longest portions of the memo and are the parts in which you include all the details that support your ideas. Begin with the information that is most important. This may mean that you will start with the key findings or recommendations. Start with your most general information and move to your specific and supporting facts. The discussion segments include the supporting ideas, facts, and research that back up your argument in the memo. Include strong points and evidence to persuade the reader to follow your recommended actions. If this section is inadequate, the memo will be not as effective as it could be. After the reader has absorbed all of your information, you want to close with a courteous ending that states what action you want your reader to take. Make sure you consider how the reader will benefit the desired actions and how you can make those actions easier. Make sure you document your findings or provide detailed information whenever necessary. You can do this by attaching lists, graphs, tables, etc. at the end of your memo. Be sure to refer to your attachments in your memo and add a notation about what is attached below your closing. And next is the way on how to write an effective memorandum. There are actually several ways on making a memorandum, but these 5 tips can be effective and be applicable in any business settings. First is audience orientation. You should always consider the audience and their needs when preparing a memo. An acronym or abbreviation that is known to management may not be known by all the employees of the organization. And if the memo is to be posted and distributed within the organization, the goal should be clear and concise. Communication is a must at all levels with no doubt. Next is professional formal tone. Memos are often announcements, and the person sending the memo speaks for all of the organization. While it may contain a request for feedback, the announcement itself is linear, from the organization to the employees. The memo may have legal standing as it often reflects policies or procedures. Next is the subject emphasis. The subject is normally declared in the subject line and should be clear and concise. If the memo is announcing the observance of a holiday, let's say specific holiday should be named in the subject line. For example, use Thanksgiving weekend schedule rather than holiday observance. Next is direct format. Some written business communication allows for a choice between direct and indirect formats, but memorandums are always direct. The purpose is must clearly announced. Next is lastly, objectivity. Memos are a place for just the facts and should have an objective tone without personal bias, preference, or interest on display. So you should avoid subjectivity. Next is how to write a memo. First is start with a header. So as I have discussed in the first part of my discussion, the parts of a memorandum, you should always start with a header. That clearly indicates that the communication is a memorandum. The intended recipients, the sender, the date, and the subject. Next is write an introduction. Write an introduction that uses a declarative sentence to announce the main topic of the memo. Next is include a body paragraph with discussion points that elaborate or list the main ideas associated with the memo's topic. To make your memo easier to read, write in short paragraphs and break the information into smaller, more manageable chunks. Since the recipients will likely to be scanning the memo, you should also use subheadings and bulleted lists when possible. Fourth will be conclude your memo with any remaining information following the body paragraph. This is the summary of the memo and should clearly inform the reader of any actions required. And lastly, close with your name, email address, and phone number in case anyone needs to contact you. Okay. When you should actually write a memorandum. First, when informing employees about company policies or process changes. Next is providing an update on key projects or goals. Number 3, making an announcement about the company, such as an employee promotion or new hire. Fourth will be to remind employees about a task that needs to be completed. To make a request of all employees, and when you're communicating a message that employees will be referred to more than once, such as a detailed proposal or recommendation. Okay. Here's the template for a memorandum. And since I cannot fit the template in this PowerPoint slide, because it should include spacing, as you have as what you have observed, there's no spacing. So you should always leave 2 blank lines between the subject and the first line of the memorandum. Use 2 spaces between sentences. Use single spacing between lines for all memorandums, even very short ones. And also, the top margin of this memorandum should be 2 inches, and the side margins should be 1 inch. And that is all for my part, and I will pass this to my partner, Mr. Galeon, to entertain some questions.
Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Sager Epilo, my partner, for that wonderful and great discussion with your points about our topic. So of course, no, gentlemen, we are very sorry for some unwanted delays on our presentation due to low connection, internet connectivity. I believe that most of us, or almost siguro all of us, are experiencing the same problem. But we are now open for your questions, gentlemen. Any queries, clarifications, or mere suggestions in line to our presentation? Do you have any questions?
None so
Yeah. Okay, so
Yes.
you don't have any question? Yes, Mr. Ralph Brunel Ferrer. What is your question, sir?
Can I can I further ask about the purpose of issuing a memorandum?
Of course, sir. Yes, of course. As I have mentioned, sir, a while ago, a memo bring attention to problems, and more than that, solve problems itself. So they accomplish their goals by informing the reader about the new information that is present, that is in hand, and that is significant to the context presented. So furthermore, memos should be sent to a specific audience depending on the purpose. So it depends on the purpose of a memorandum where to send it. So if you're about to call for a meeting, so of course you will address it to the members of the board. If you're going to provide informations about the changes in the company rule, then you will address it to almost all of the staff in your company. So that depends on the purpose and to the specific person you send your memorandum to. So have I made it clear to you, Mr. Uh, Ferrer?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have any other questions? Yes. You raise your hand, maybe Brian, Jinan. Sir, what is your question, sir?
In connection to your answer, how can you say that
Yes.
memos can solve problems?
Sir, well, thank you so much, sir, for that question. In my previous answer, sir, I've mentioned a memorandum solve problems itself. Well, it does not literally mean that a memorandum solve a specific problem. But what I wanted to emphasize here, sir, is that there is this so-called problem-solving memos, and it has a formula to follow. So this problem-solving memo, this so-called problem-solving memo, quickly summarizes the problem present. So its main function is to make sure that everything are in its simplest terms, so possible, so everyone involved will understand. So from that, they find out possible causes of the problem until they come up to an idea and address it address it with that particular idea. They come up upon knowing the causes of that particular problem. So that is the circulation or the formula I wanted to adhere to you about memorandum solving problems. So I made it clear to you, sir?
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so I think I do. So thank you so much. So any other questions? So I think you have no further questions. But if there is, don't hesitate to reach us by email and on our mobile numbers. So again, gentlemen, in behalf of my partner, Mr. Sergio Erpilo, I am John Elizur Dalion, and thank you so much for listening. And I hope you cultivate something out from our discussion. It's been an honor to be in front of you, gentlemen, our future successful board of directors. So again, thank you so much and good day. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Okay, so once again, good day to our board of directors. Again, we would like to say thank you so much for listening in our discussion a while ago about writing a memorandum. So we are now inches away from understanding all of the four pillars of the discussion. So because we are unable to meet personally, we can palpably make a on-the-spot memorandum writing and check it if it aligns to our goals in our discussion. But we hope that we made our discussion clear to you, gentlemen, for you to assess the main points of our topic. So from identifying what a memorandum is down to the very end. Of course, we won't let this circumstance hinder us from assessing your learnings. So we prepared questions for you to answer, and this will serve as an evaluation process for us to make sure that you really cultivated some learnings and some ideas, insights out from our discussion. So these are just simple questions, and we'll be calling you one by one, if it's okay, to answer and to explain. So to our beloved board of directors, Mr. Elvin Caldino, Mr. Kevin Jade Pamiron, Mr. Kirby Brian Genandoy, Mr. Ralph Ferrer, and Mr. Shane Caparino. Are you ready?
Yes, we're ready. We're
Yes.
very ready, sir.
Ready.
Let's get started.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's get started. For question number one, may I request Mr. Caparino to answer this question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Caparino, based on your learnings and understandings on our discussion, what is a memorandum?
So, based on my understanding, a memorandum is a written message in business office that is used to communicate an announcement or create an announcement or notification.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Caparino. You got it right. So a
That's all.
memorandum is a written message that can also be in the form of a note for your future use. So again, thank you so much, Mr. Caparino. You got it right. For our second question, may I request Mr. Kevin Jade Pamiron? Mr. Kevin Jade Pamiron.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So here is your question, sir. What is a good memorandum? What is a good memorandum?
So, based on my understanding in this session, so a good memorandum is short and very concise and direct to the point.
Okay.
That's all, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pamiron. You got it right too. So a good memorandum is something that is short, concise, and direct to the point. So unlike to the bad memorandum that is long and lengthy, a good memorandum should always be observed in writing a memorandum. So again, thank you so much, Mr. Kevin Jade Pamiron. Next question would be for Mr. Kirby Brian Genandoy. Mr. Kirby Brian Genandoy, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here is your question, sir. Give at least 3 advantages of a memorandum. I believe I mentioned 6 or 7 in my report, but can you give me at least 3 advantages of a memorandum?
Yes, sir. First is avoid misleading. Next is preserve information.
Okay,
And last is concise.
okay, thank you so much. So Mr. Genandoy mentioned about the three advantages of memorandum, which includes avoid misleading, preserve information, and concise. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Jenendoy. Next question would be for Mr. Ralph Brunel Ferrer. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Ferrer, here's your question. This segment will help the reader or the readers understand the key points of the memo immediately. This segment may also include references to methods and sources you have used in your research. What is this?
Summary, sir.
Okay, you got it right, Mr. Ferrer. The answer is a summary. So it is discussed by my partner, Mr. Erpilo. Okay, next question, for my final question, would be for Mr. Elvin Caldino. Mr. Elvin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here's your question, sir. It is the longest portions of the memo and are the parts in which it includes all the details that support ideas.
Discussion, sir.
Okay, you got it right, Mr. Caldino. The longest
Thank
portion of the memo and are the parts in which it includes all the details that supports ideas is the discussion. So also it is included in the report of Mr. CJ Erpilo. Okay, so I will give the mic to Mr. Erpilo.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dalion. It is my turn to ask some questions for the audience or for my fellow participants. So this question is for Shane Caparino. Mr. Caparino, can you give at least two scenarios on when you should write a memo?
First is requesting, and next is making an announcement, sir.
Okay, that is correct. So next question will be for Alvin Caldino. Mr. Caldino, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what do you mean of solving memo? So what do you mean of a memo?
So, problem solving memo, it summarizes a problem in hand and makes sure that everything is recognizable so everyone can understand. With this, it find out possible causes of the problem and soon give a solution to it. That's all, sir.
Very good. Thank you for your answer. So this next question is for Kevin Jade Fameron. Okay, so Mr. Fameron, this,
Yes,
can you
sir.
give me? Okay, so name at least two do's in explain each.
So first is the keep things simple. So meaning always use words that are easy to understand and to keep the context of the information steady. And the next one is the use bullet list. So use bullet list is this is to recognize and assess the main thought of the memo quickly. That's all, sir.
Thank you very much. Next question is for Curvy Brian Ginandoy. So
Yes,
why
sir.
is a memorandum important in the workplace? Again, why is a memorandum important in the workplace?
It is important, especially to people within a business, as it is used to communicate something in urgency.
Okay, thank you very much. Last question will be for Ralph Ronel Ferrer. So for you, Mr. Ferrer, personally, why you should learn how to write a memorandum?
I should learn I should learn how to write a memorandum because that is essential to my job as a board director. Moreover, I am working in a formal setting, so I must act formal and deliver formal letter through a good and comprehensive memo. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dario, the mic is yours.
Okay, I am very pleased and I am very happy to know that you all, sir, our future successful new set of newly appointed board of directors, have answered our questions correctly. We are so happy to know that you really paid attention into our discussion and lend us your ears into understanding and further assessing our discussion. So again, sir, gentlemen, we are very thankful for your time, for sparing us your time into listening uh, in our seminar workshop. And I hope that this gives you something that would drive you straight forward towards your goals. And I know that you always envision yourself to become that some person, that particular person, a successful one in the future. So again, thank you so much, sir. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you so much. Good day. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.